Hi there, once again this is G, and if you're getting bored of oxygen not included, this is a video for you. And if you find it helpful, then smash that like button for the algorithm. In the previous video, we went over melting lots and lots of sulfur, and if you haven't seen that, check out the link below. But here, I want to show you how to use molten sulfur to create natural tiles for your pip farm. So let's have a look. First of all, we have a large pool of sulfur here, and you can also use reservoirs if you want, but I just use the pool. And we have some steel pumps here to take the sulfur out. And all the plumbing and all the tiles are all made of insulated ceramic. And there is an exception here. This pipe here is made of gold, and I'll explain that in a minute. But first, let's have a look at the plumbing. So here we have the sulfur supply pipes, and they're also used to carry salt water because we're farming wild water weeds in this case. But this other pipe here that goes on a loop, this is part of supercoolant loop, which is also used to cool and solidify sulfur into tiles. And at the top we have aqua tuners with steam turbines to extract the heat. Now this method is not a new idea, so I've posted a link to the original post in the description below. And the one thing to note here is I've set up the gold pipes in parallel, so this allows you to cool the floors and add new floors without affecting the previous ones. And you can use these shutoffs here to control that. Now, as you can see, each room is 96 tiles, and it's a greenhouse. And the reason it's a greenhouse is we have a farm station here, but it's separated by a bit of visco gel. So it's technically one room, but this side has pips, and the visco gel keeps them inside from wandering out into the farm station area. And these areas are all filled with CO2, but depending on what you're growing, you can fill this with a different gas. And to feed the farm stations, you're going to need a lot of fertilizer. And in this case, it's all being brought in by conveyors. Let me show you. Here we have a basic conveyor setup, and it's being fed from above by fertilizer. And anything that's produced here will be taken away. But when you're starting, you do not want to take the seeds away automatically. So you may want to configure that accordingly. And then once you've planted everything, then you can take any extra seeds away. Now you'll notice that every room has a bunch of ladders here. And these are spaced out where the work has been completed. And here they're not spaced out yet because we haven't poured the floor. And this is to keep the pips from planting in the wrong spots. We want to make sure we plant them like one space apart, and you put the ladders where you don't want them to plant, and that blocks the plant from going in there. But if you want to know more about how the pips auto-plant seeds, then check out the links below. But in general, what you want to do is you want to make sure you have vertically 4 spaces apart between your floors. That's pretty standard. And horizontally, you want to space out your plants at least 1 apart on average. And when you plant them, you want to start from the right side and go left. And then once you completed the floor, you want to go down. And if your plants are vertical, like as in they're hanging from top to bottom, then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and start from the bottom and then work your way up. Okay, I think that's enough theory. Let's pour down some soil. I'm going to turn on this pump and speed this up. And let's have a look at the plumbing. Here we have sulfur coming in at about 155 degrees. And it's starting to pour down. You can see the temperature is going up. And it solidifies a little bit at first. That's not a problem. It will quickly liquefy again. And then it will just stay liquid. We're going to fill this up until it's about 700 kilos per tile. You don't have to go that far, but if you have a sour gas boiler, then you have lots of sulfur and you don't know what to do with it. So 700 kilos per tile sounds fine to me. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead once it's poured. Now, one thing to note here is the equipment in here is made of steel, and that's because things get pretty hot in here, but not too crazy hot. And the reason this is because we have CO2, and it's a really poor thermal conductor. And so if we look at the temperature here, it's about 150 down here, but only about 95 to 100 here. And if we look outside of this room, it's actually pretty cozy at about 30 degrees or so. And that's because this visco gel is keeping things nice and segregated. So yeah, you don't really need to worry about outside this room. As long as your walls here are insulated and you have visco gel and you have CO2 inside or chlorine, you're going to be fine. Okay, let's go ahead and skip ahead. Okay, we're just at over 700 kilos per tile. You can see here. We can go ahead and turn this off. And we speed this up along. And that's the last of the sulfur. And what you want to do next is turn on the supercoolant. So we do that. Let's have a look at this. We have supercoolant coming in at about 18 degrees. and very quickly it's going to pull all the heat out of this sulfur, and it's going to send that to the steam turbines. So let's see here. It's cooling very quickly. It's going to solidify momentarily. Let's see here. And what might happen occasionally is you might get beads of sulfur here solidifying. It doesn't seem to be happening right now, but this does happen occasionally, and you can just collect those if that happens. All right, I'm just going to speed this along, and it's still going to take a while for this to cool, and supercool needs to run its course. I'm going to skip ahead until this cools. Here you can see, by the way, that sulfur is causing these little beads, and what you can do is just collect them. You select it here and take it away. We don't need that anymore. Okay, we're down to 32 degrees. That's good enough for our purposes. If we look here, the steam turbines are working hard to get rid of the heat. And what we can do now is we can go ahead and start pouring some of the salt water because we're going to be raising water weeds. Doesn't need very much, so that should be good. Let's go ahead and let it fill up. That should be fine. And then what we can do is go ahead and put the bin in here. And we're just going to go ahead and sandbox it in for the sake of simplicity. Okay, and then we're going to also go ahead and sandbox the critter drop-off. But normally you just want to have a dupe build it. And then the settings here, we're just going to go ahead and copy it from the previous one for the pip. And we set it to 3 is fine. And then as far as the settings for this, we can copy it of this one. And then what you want to do is you set the maximum number of kilograms to how many seeds you want. So let's say we put 13 in this case. And that's good enough. And we set priority nice and high. And then the dupe will come along and bring the seeds in here. And then the pips can either grab them, because they do that. They can grab things out of bins. Or you can just, turn off the bin and drop the seeds on the ground, and then the pips will pick them up. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and spawn some seeds. Okay, now we should have some seeds in our container. And then what we can do is just empty it out by setting the max to 0. And then remove the seed as the option. That's it. And then what you want to do is have a dupe wrangle some pips and bring them in here. You can also drop in some pip eggs. That works too. And in this case, we're just going to go ahead and sandbox some pips. Okay, we got 3 pips now. And what they will do is they will automatically find the seeds and they'll plant them in the first available tile. And that being this one here with the pipe. Let's go ahead and skip ahead until they plant something. Okay, a pip is about to plant something. Here he comes. And now we've got 1 water weed here. And then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and deconstruct this ladder here. And that will let the pip plant in the next spot. For the purpose of this test here, we're going to go ahead and destroy this. And then we're going to skip ahead and another pip will plant a seed here. Here comes the next one. Okay, he's going to go ahead. There is the water weed. And then we go ahead and deconstruct the next ladder, and this will just continue. So I'll just skip ahead until they plant almost everything, and I'll show you. Okay, here he comes to plant another one, and this will just continue until they plant everything. So one other thing I want to show you as this happens is, let's have a look at a dupe coming in here and using this farm station to go ahead and fertilize these wild weeds. Okay, here comes a couple of overly enthusiastic dupes, and they already got some micronutrients from a different station. And as long as both the source and destination has a farm station, they can bring micronutrients from a different place. So now we got farmer's touch on these. So if you look at this one, it's got next harvest 23.4 cycles. But if you look at one of the other ones, it's got 47.5 cycles, so twice as fast. But again, it uses lots of fertilizer, so you need to have a lot of that coming in. And I can show you another video how to build a large fertilizer plant. But for now, that's all I wanted to show you. And this has been Greasy Hammer. And if you like this video, please share, like, and subscribe. And stay tuned for the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.